For the first time in the franchise, a predator is the main character of the movie. We follow him on an extremely dangerous planet as he hunts for the ultimate trophy. Dan Trachtenberg from Prey returns to direct this very different sequel. So join us as we discuss Predator Badlands.
Hi, this is Michael Bean, and this is the Atomic Cinema Experience. Enjoy it.
Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast, and today we are returning to the Predator franchise for the brand new release of Predator Badlands. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Also, thanks to Michael Bean for giving us a little introduction for this one. He almost got the title right, so I mean, that's, you know.
I put that on myself. I was the one who met up with him. He was at a con, and I told him the name of the show, and I saw him write it down just so he could, have it there. And he wrote down Atomic Cinema, and then for Experiment, he just wrote EXPER. And so when he got to it, I think he just had the wrong word in mind. Could have corrected him. Didn't feel like that was my place, but thank him anyway.
Yes. But he wanted us to mention his show, Just Fooling About with Michael Bean, which you can find on YouTube. So go check that out. But yes, interestingly, we got that a few weeks ago, and I decided to save it for this movie because it's a little bit more related to his career. Because, well, he was in the animated movie just this year, but there's a lot of Weyland-Yutani stuff in this movie as well, so it's not entirely disconnected from Alien. It's actually got a shared universe. So, there was a bit more of a reason to have it on this one. So timing was kind of nice there. But yes, of course, we will start spoiler free, as we always do. Especially important for a brand new movie that just came out. So we'll give you a warning before we go into the spoilers. And if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch if you can. And you can also, of course, give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. And you can also support us financially via Patreon or YouTube membership. But I'll tell you more about that at the end. I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode to say my sentence clearly.
You're too comfy. You've gotten used to it, tripping over your words.
It's, I say the same spiel every time to avoid shenanigans like that. But hey, we're here. So yes, Predator Badlands, the 6th film in the Predator franchise, not counting the AVPs, of course, which kind of count as their own separate thing. And is the 2nd from Dan Trachtenberg, who did Prey, which most people were pretty positive on when it came out. Understandably so. It's pretty good. But this one's very different. This one's trying to be something very different to every other Predator movie. Because Prey, while it was different in that it was a different time period, this one's like, no, we're in space and a Predator is the main character. A Predator is the protagonist of this film. That is the sales pitch for Predator Badlands.
I mean, you're not wrong. And it definitely feels different. I think we'll have thoughts on that as we go through, but it's something that I feel, I think we said this during the Predator Killer of Killers review, is that I feel like Dan Trachtenberg, having now taken hold of the franchise, it seems like he's going to be the showrunner there. It feels like he does have a vision for the universe as a whole, like a direction that he wants to put it. And I feel like this is more in line with that still.
Yeah, and it's the same universe as Alien, which this movie very much heavily emphasizes. And that's not a spoiler, that is in the trailer. Like the main, like, this is the secondary character, and this is a Weyland-Yutani synth, a droid. Yes. And that's something that was in the trailers. It's very much part of the sales pitch as well. So it's not a spoiler to say any of that. Obviously, there's a bit more to it, which we'll get into in spoilers, but that is that's the basic stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I was obviously intrigued by this, and it was nice to get something fresh and different. Because again, Prey was good, but Prey still fundamentally was a predator comes to Earth, human character or characters has to deal with the fact that a predator's around. And there was a bit of a new flavor to it, because it was in a older time period where we had less weapons, and we had a character who was a little bit different than your macho males of the past movies. But the broad strokes and the ideas were kind of the same. This one is very different. This one, although The interesting thing, before we get into what we feel about the movie, one of the interesting things about this is that it does feel like a companion to Prey in a lot of ways, because the main character is a young predator who needs to prove himself by going on a hunt, and Nadu in the last movie was this, young Native American who needed to prove herself to her tribe by going on a hunt. So there is actually some parallels, even though they obviously play out very differently. And it goes without saying that the predator, attitude and like their philosophy is a lot harsher, and it's a lot more kill or be killed kind of thing.
No.
So yeah,
not at all. This is how I was raised, Pete. This is normal.
It's honestly the thing it reminded me more than anything of was probably how Star Trek handles Klingons. That's the sort of vibe I was getting a little bit early on in this movie, but more than that later on. So So Predator goes on a hunt, and I'm still going to mainly call them Predators, even though we actually have a name, which it's probably not the first time this word's come up, but it's so heavily used in this movie that Yotja is going to be said a bit more frequently, as like, because they come from Yotja Prime, which is the planet name, and then they're from they're Yotja. So we have a name for. Now I don't know if they necessarily specify that that's the name of the species, but it's definitely the name of is calling us Earthlings. They're Yotja.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure expanded material that's existed for many years. Yotja has been the name of the species. I don't know if that was established in a movie. I don't remember it being so.
I don't think so. Well, it's the sort of thing where it didn't surprise me when they started saying it, and obviously I've remembered it way more now because this movie does bring it up a lot. There's this one of the interesting things about having Weyland-Yutani in this movie is that we have not humans. She's a synth, but we have what currently the knowledge is. Like, human beings know about the predator species, they know about Yotjas, so they're talking about them more openly. They understand a lot about them in a way that all the present day stories about Predator didn't. Obviously to Arnold in the first movie is like, what the hell is this thing? Who are you? What are you doing? No idea what he is, just confused, right? And that goes for 2 for the most part. It goes for Prey. Not quite so much for the Predator, but that's its own weird thing. Let's not worry about that. So I think it's interesting, this established universe where other species are just aware of the predators, and in a way where things feel a bit more connected, or at least the very least knowledgeable. People we don't go to that planet because that's where the angry predators live. Not a good time if we go there.
Yeah, it's the same sort of vibe that you get at the beginning of Alien and Aliens, where we're in just a future where planets are off limits and nobody goes there for whatever reason and stuff like that. It's the same sort of thing here where people are aware of the Yotja, they are around, but we do our best to avoid them for the most part because they seem to have some backwards ideas.
You say that though, I want to pick you up in a little correction there, is that in Aliens, people in general do not believe that aliens exist, right? So this is actually set after Aliens to some extent. How much after Aliens, I'm not sure. I have heard that it's set between Alien 3 and Resurrection in the timeline. I don't have anything to back that up other than I read it online, but that sounds right because the characters in Aliens don't believe that Ripley's seen an alien.
But Pete, Prometheus.
That doesn't dispute or contradict what I just said.
Sure it does.
No, it doesn't.
They literally go out and see aliens. They call them gods or whatever, but they literally go see aliens.
I said that people in general don't know about aliens.
In general.
The fact that Weyland-Yutani higher-ups know about them is a different thing.
Well, in that case, same sort of thing can be said for here. I don't think we know for fact that the general public knows about them.
True. But these are, these aren't high-ranking Weyland-Yutani. They're synths, I guess. Maybe they're more trusted with information because they won't go blabbing it around. I don't know.
Right.
But at the very least, though, set after Aliens, and if not, at least Alien 3 sounds about right timeline wise. I mean, it's tough to tell, but I think one of the arguments I saw online is that the technology they've got looks a little bit more advanced than the first couple of Alien movies, and I think that's probably fair to say. This is
a weird one because it's at least Prey established that it feels like the Predator technology kind of evolves in the same sort of pace as human technology. Obviously, they are far more advanced than us. But
they were ahead first.
We can see in Prey that it looks like he's a little bit less technologically advanced than they were in like the original Predator, Predator 2. This one, because of the guy that we're following, maybe whatever, it feels like he has a lot lesser technology wise. His look is a lot more primitive, whereas obviously all the Weyland-Yutani stuff feels a lot more advanced comparatively.
Well, there are some reasons for that, which we'll get into in the movie, but yeah. Anyway, we're sort of talking around things here. Let's at least answer the question up front. Sure. David, what did you think of Predator Badlands?
I'm a little bit split on this one. First and foremost, I want to say I really did have fun with this movie. I think it was a good time. I think it's very well made. There are a few caveats to that, but overall, I really did think that this was a fun time to go through. My split comes from it's PG-13, and it feels less like a Predator movie and more like a alternate universe Mandalorian movie. Like, it feels like there's just a little bit more, I don't want to call it whimsy, but it's a buddy adventure, and like a big aspect of this is friendship and stuff like that. And it doesn't feel like it really fits to me amongst the Predator franchise as I came to know it. Now, that's not to say that like we can't have different branches, we can't do different things and explore different ways. Again, I still had fun with this, and I think that that's fair. But I think with a name like Predator Badlands, with the idea that we are going to follow a Predator for the first time, I guess I was just expecting it to be a bit more in line with the original stuff. I still expected to be sort of in that Prey mindset, but this takes a completely different turn over into much more campy or fun sort of territory at times. So still good action sequences. Again, a couple caveats on that, but if you're going in this expecting like blood and guts and that unsettling horror that is the Predator movies, it's not really there for this one.
No. I don't know if I describe any of them as unsettling horror. I think that's you being a bit more of a baby when it comes to horror movies. But
I mean, the idea, I think back to the original Predator, like the idea it could be anywhere in the woods. You're constantly on edge.
There's tension, but I don't know if
that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Unrelenting was definitely a big word to use there.
Did I say unrelenting? I don't remember saying that. Fair enough.
I think you said unrelenting. I'm pretty sure you said unrelenting horror.
Okay.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Anyway, the PG-13 thing actually isn't a big deal because people freaked out when they saw that because typically, like, no, Predator should be R-rated. But I think my assumption, and a lot of people's assumption, and I think correct now that I've seen the movie, is that it's not actually toned down in terms of the violence that the Predator's doing. It just so happens that the plot means that there's no humans that are being killed. It's all monsters and synths. And because of that, I think the MPAA are just kind of like, well, it's not as extreme technically because it's not human beings, so PG-13.
There's no red blood anywhere.
Yeah, and then also, like, there's not really someone who would feel right to be dropping F-bombs. So, I don't know, like, I guess the premise just naturally lent itself to this rating, and I think certain other countries might still be rating it a little bit harsher on their own rating system, depending on what they count for certain things, but I don't know. I never found that aspect to be a problem. I wouldn't say whimsy, but the more interesting point you brought up there, which is this idea of it feeling very different, because it is, right? As much as I was making fun of you for the unrelenting horror part,
thank you.
It is different to the other movies, and I think inherently it was always going to be. I think if you make a Predator the protagonist, inherently it's a very different movie in some way. Now, does it have to be what it is in this? Not necessarily, but I think it does have to be very different to what these other movies have all been. And I think to some level, if we're going to follow this character as the protagonist, there has to be kind of an opening up of like, well, we have to at least get a little bit into his head. We have to at least understand him and root for him in some way. And that means that fundamentally he cannot be the scary monster that most of the time the Predators are portrayed to be. So that is just something that I think you have to accept if we're making this pivot. The question for me then becomes, okay, how do we do that? Does it enhance the lore? Because at this point, you know, like the Predator is a really interesting movie character / monster in that obviously he's really cool, got the great design in the original movie, makes for a lot of good action sequences, makes for this idea of like the ultimate hunter, all the rest of it. And there is this mystique that you would want in that type of monster. But also, what makes him unique compared to the Xenomorph and other movie monsters is that, you know, he's an intelligent creature, right? His species is intelligent. They have spaceships. They're doing this, and you know, they're doing hunts because they're into these kind of things. That's always opened up the idea that there's a lot more you could do with them. And in a weird way, the movies, by kind of just trying to repeat what Predator did with having the scary monster hunting characters down, kind of reinforce what, you know, and try to recapture what it originally was. But there was always kind of this idea of like, you could explore this more. Now there's always a danger of doing that you lose the mystique, but you also don't gain anything because it's not that good, right? I think the trick with this movie is that, okay, we're naturally going to lose some of the mystique, but as long as you replace that with good lore and good things where we can actually get invested in them in other ways, I think that's, and I'm not saying, and I've not even said yet if I think they've done it. I'm just saying that, and on paper, what you just brought up is that's the challenge of making this Predator movie, is that you're naturally going to lose some mystique because we have to follow this character, care about them. He has to have some kind of an arc, which probably means he's going to learn some kind of value that we don't associate with a Predator. And if that's happening, then does that land? And do we sort of care about the idea of the Predator in a new way, where instead of looking at this unstoppable movie monster, we are looking something like Worf from Star Trek, where it's like, now we can have Predator characters who are characters who we root for and we care about, and we see them as something a little bit more than just the big boogeyman in the jungle who's going to come out and, you know, chop off a head or whatever it is. So that's the challenge. That's what Dan Trachtenberg had in front of him in making this movie.
Yeah, and everything you just said, I agree with, in the whole sense of, I think, obviously, if you have him as a protagonist, he needs to go through that arc, and we're going to have him change as a character. We're going to get more depth. And I do like the one little out that they give themselves, which is that the Predator species divides itself into clans. So theoretically, anything that we learn about any given Yautja or any individual could be a clan thing rather than a species-wide thing. So you can still have depth to that. You can have things change across different interpretations. But when I was talking about the PG-13 stuff, it wasn't so much that I felt that it was babyfied. I didn't think that it was anything where, you know, we weren't gonna be able to explore the stuff. It was really coming down to the vibe I was getting from I'm just going to call them the central troupe. Just the main core characters that we follow here, in that it just gave me really strong, like, I'm just going to call it early Disney Plus vibes. Like, that's kind of what I was getting through that. It gave me, I didn't feel like this was something that was really deep and like very firm understanding, and like looking at this through a very complex lens of all the stuff going on. It felt like a very simplified plot that was just, here's what the characters are going through, and we literally have sequences where the characters are just saying the feelings that they feel out loud on the surface, sort of stuff. And I don't know, something in that rubbed me the wrong way, where by the time that everything was resolved, I still felt like I had a good time. But when you're talking about the mystique of the character and all that, while I still think the concept of the Predator is still solid, I still don't think that was taken away from this particular one. It just again, it felt like Mandalorian to me. It felt like we took the icon that is like a Boba Fett or something like that, and we made them so humanified, made them so much of like seeing through the human lens, that it didn't lose its mystique, but it lost just a bit of that coolness factor for me.
See, I would say that there is a loss of mystique, but I wouldn't say it's inherently bad in this case. Because Predator, you can have something else other than mystique, which is, if anyone's listened to my Alien Earth reviews that I did for that show, I complained a lot about the loss of mystique for the xenomorph, and the problem with the xenomorph, if you're going to lose the mystique, is that you can't replace it with anything else, because it's just a monster, right? There's not, if you do anything else with it, I'm just like, this is stupid, why are we doing this? Whereas with Predators, they can be characters. So I did like this movie. In fact, I think it's better than Prey. And
Oh, all right.
I feel kind of... The Mandalorian comparison is kind of interesting to me. I never really thought that once, and I think that show's pretty dull. But I think one of the reasons why I think there's a stark difference before we even start talking about characters or what they're doing with the story or whatever is, simply put, is The Mandalorian season 1, which is the one season I've seen, was clearly something that should have been a 2-hour movie stretched out to 8 episodes, and the pacing suffered as a result. This movie is 100 minutes, and it is very, very well paced. Almost too quickly paced, and not really, I don't actually mean it's too quickly paced, but it almost felt too quickly paced when I realised I was going to enter the third act, and I was like, wait a minute, we can't be in the third act. Movies are 2.5 hours now. There's no way we're ready for the third act already, and we were. It did not overstay its welcome, so I applaud that. I think the characterization was an interesting thing to balance, for sure. I don't think it's super deep. I will say that. I think it sort of works in a sort of nice surface level sort of thing. But I think it works for the type of movie that this is. And the way I would describe this is a sci-fi adventure movie. I wouldn't call it whimsical per se, but I would call it, it's definitely very creative. I think that's one of the things that was sticking out to me is once he's on this planet, once Deck, our main character, that's his name, once he is on the planet, I thought this planet and its creatures were very, very interesting and creative with the way that they thought about different things. At one point, there's like a vista shot of like the planet of just, looking across the skyline. And if you look at one of the floating island things, there's just like a big sandworm from Dune just kind of like hanging around on one of them. And it never comes up. And you never like fight this thing later in the movie. It's just there in the distance. It's kind of there's just weird big creatures all over this place. And it was making me think bizarrely of, there was an animated show that one of the patrons made me watch last year, or maybe 2 years ago now, called Scavenger's Reign, which was an animated series about this like weird planet that a bunch of space travelers like get stranded on, and there was just like so many weird ecological things about it, weird like fruit and animals and different weird rules about the plants that we're encountering, and there's a lot of that in this. There's I won't spoil what they are here, but it's like, oh, this grass is kind of different and does this, and this thing does this, and there's all these little things we're encountering, as well as the bigger monsters that keep coming up. And I thought that was a lot of fun. I thought the comedy of like between the droid and, or I should say the synth and Deck was typically pretty good. I thought that stuff was working quite well. And I think the third act, a lot of the action is pretty well done. There's the sort of thing where on paper I might have like been concerned, but I think there's enough of it works quite well that I wasn't too mad. But it definitely is going for a different tone from like the other Predator movies. But that's kind of partly why I appreciate it, because it was like, if they gave me a really good like just another Predator movie, right? I would probably get into it in the same way that I enjoy another slasher sequel from, a Friday the 13th or something. Right. In fact, I'm still waiting for another one of those. Get on it, assholes. It's been like 16 years since the last one. Jeez, come on, guys.
Hey, if you can convince executives that anybody else is going to go see a slasher movie, then they'll hop on it.
People do. Horror movies are the most successful thing at the box office this year.
Horror is different from slasher, and especially something that's got as silly as Nightmare on Elm Street.
I said Friday the 13th, but
same though.
No, people go see slasher movies. People would love.
All right,
Terrifier 2 and 3 did amazingly. Like,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Right? You're saying shit. You don't know what you're talking about. Keep your trap shut for a second whilst I'm talking about important things. Okay? What was I saying anyway? Okay, yeah. So they could give me just another Predator movie, and if it was well made, I'd probably be happy with it and be like, hey, it's just not adding anything, but it was a fun Predator ride. That's cool. I think immediately from the opening scenes of this is very clear, oh, this movie's got no interest in just being another Predator movie. There's some thematic kind of like parallels to Prey, which is interesting because it kind of makes it a kind of a companion movie to that, but it's like doing something completely different. It's doing this adventure story. It's giving it like more of a heart than any Predator movie ever really has had up until this point. Not that there's not been any, like obviously like the last movie, like Nadu and her dog, like there's definitely some heart in that, but this is a lot different to that, and I think I appreciate the bold swings this is taking, and I was always kind of on board with what they were trying, even if not every little thing necessarily was a complete in the win column. Like, you know, I'm not going to be giving this a perfect score at the end because I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's a really solid adventure movie that does some fun things with the Predator lore, kind of turns some things on its head. And I will say that I quite enjoy a good chunk of the third act that I think has some really fun payoffs, and again also flips some things on its head, which is interesting. And also, I'm just going to say it, there wasn't, you know, a direct quote from other Predator movies every 5 or 10 minutes like Alien Romulus did for the first two Alien films. I mean, Prey only did it once, to be fair, and I'll let you away with one. Like, I will. I'll give you one, right? I do wish to rephrase that a little bit, though, because saying if it bleeds, we can kill it is just so on the nose. But, you know, but whatever. You just had one. I'll give you the one. Yeah.
I fully expected that to just be Hulu's thing with owning Alien and Predator, is that, like, every single project that comes out now is eventually going to say, get away from her, you bitch. Like, I just expected that to be the thing.
Oh geez. Now if they're going to bring a line of dialogue back, they should bring back the pussy jokes. They've not brought those back yet. Like,
they were really happy with that PG-13 rating. You wanted them to just throw that all away?
My girlfriend's pussy's as big as a house. My girlfriend's pussy's as big as a house. Why'd you say that twice? I didn't. You see, because of the echo.
Right.
For some reason, if you've not seen the first Predator, I probably sound like a madman to you right now, audience. But go watch the first Predator. There's a joke in there, okay?
Yeah, no, I remember it. I remember it because I was like, this isn't what I was expecting from a Predator movie, but okay.
Yeah, I was pretty into this. I appreciate them having a Predator language that is subtitled. You know, I think that was also an inspired choice.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it adds depth to the lore, and it like doesn't take anything else away, because it's like, oh, okay, the Predator has always been growling, snarling, whatever you want to call that clicky noise that he makes, but occasionally in some of the movies there has been actual speech. To flesh that out, to give it an actual language behind it, I think that's a smart idea. Yeah.
Again, made me think of Klingons. Like there was a lot of parallels to Klingons I was getting in the early parts of this. So no, I liked it quite a bit. I left feeling pretty enthused about a lot of the scenes I was seeing. It was the sort of thing where I went in with kind of trepidatious expectations wise, where I'm like, I'm hoping I'm going to like it, but you know, this could be so weird and different. It could be a bit of a misfire potentially. And as soon as we got on the planet, right, the Genna planet, something like that.
Genna sounds right. Yeah. Genna or Jenna.
Yeah. Once they got onto the planet though, and like everything he was encountering, I was just kind of like, oh, all of these action scenes, all these fight scenes are typically pretty good. The only real exception maybe being when there's maybe a little bit too, but some of the CG suffers a little bit when he's like doing some sort of like jumping around a bit much. Yeah. Where if you can sort of feel the movement being a bit too CG. But that's the thing, this is a very effects heavy movie, because unlike Prey, where you can just go shoot most of it in a forest, and other than the Predator himself, everything's just in camera. It's just actors. It's just, you know, this and that. This movie, like, no, the entire background has to be at least partially CG, because we're on an alien planet. There's creatures. The Predator's face is CG, and that's constantly having to be animated and talking. And you've got, all those things going on. I do think it's funny though. There's a joke at one point from Elle Fanning's character as she plays the synth, Thea. She asks a question about which teeth do the chewing? Is it the big fangs, or is it the inner teeth? And they have a scene where the predator is like holding some food, and I was like, are they going to show him chewing? Are we going to see it? And he holds it up to his mouth, but they sort of hide what he's actually doing with it. I was like, oh, you cowards, you couldn't figure out how to show him chewing food. Yeah. I can see the limitations here, you bastard. But to be fair, it is moving quite well with all the talking, so I mean, they did a lot of work on that. Oh yeah. No, apparently they went to the language guy when they were developing the language, who also either worked with the guy or was the guy who did the Na'vi. Like he did that full language and stuff like that. And I feel like they probably didn't go for this tech directly to James Cameron, but it's kind of, flittered throughout the industry now of all the facial mocap stuff. Because that was the one thing I was so surprised by was, despite it being a predator face, it still does a good job of getting across the human emotion. They did a good job of like rigging that all up where even we can respond to the eyes the same as any other human, but when it comes to the mouth and whatever else, that's kind of foreign. He can't frown, and yet I still feel like I saw him frown. I still got that vibe across. Yeah, it's good stuff. Obviously, he's got variations of a lot of the weapons we've seen before in Predator movies, although the key new addition here is like a saber that has kind of a heated edge, so it's got like a red sort of edge to it. It looks kind of nice.
That's kind of where I was getting some Mandalorian stuff. Like I like those scenes and it separates itself enough. But like the first time it happened, I was like, oh, okay, this is a Star Wars lightsaber fight. That's what we're doing here.
I mean, I wasn't thinking about that at all though. Happily, because I've forgotten almost all of that show. I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I was never thinking about that once in this entire movie.
I mean, that's fair. For me, I can't say without getting into spoilers directly, but like there's one specific character that once they were introduced, I'm like, this feels like we're just kind of marketing at this point a little bit more so than actually like telling the story.
I think that's very cynical in this case because I'm like, I mean, do you think we're going to get marketing of that character?
I don't know. I think someone in the marketing office is sitting there like trying their damnedest to make it happen. I don't know if it's going to happen, but they're definitely giving it their shot. I
mean, this isn't Star Wars though. I don't think they've got an intention of going as broad audience with this. Like I can kind of see the comparison you're trying to make. I just don't know if I'm ready to be cynical enough to say that's what the intention behind this is here.
All right. No, fair. I mean, I like the movie. All of my little things here come across solely from the viewpoint of I really liked Prey. I think Prey was a really good one. And I also was very fond of Killer of Killers. Obviously, that being animated, it's slightly different. But I like the sort of vibe and tone that they were establishing of Predator being this deeper thing that we can really spend some time on, and then it's also going to have these incredible action sequences and stuff like that. This one, the action sequences are still there, but it's the lack of depth I think was really kind of turning me off a little bit, where it felt like the story being told was so shallow that it was just kind of something else. And again, it's okay to have that. It's okay to branch out the franchise and try different things, and I had fun with this, but it just felt so wildly different to the other ones that I think it turned me off just a little bit coming out of it.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if the story, like, the story in the other Predator movies any deeper than this?
Well, I'm not thinking about the franchise as a whole. I'm talking about Dan Trachtenberg picking it up with Prey and moving forward. Like, those two...
I'm including Prey in this. Like, I mean, do you think this is any
I
less...
would say so.
I don't know if I agree with
absolutely.
that.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, also, I mean, I think this has better pacing than Prey. Prey's a good movie. I like a lot of what Prey's doing. I think the character's great. I think the music's great. And the same composer is back here. You can tell it's the same composer. They never use the same themes, but they're definitely using a few of the same instruments because they're definitely trying to like make you think of that Prey score but with like a new theme kind of thing. Which I respect. I appreciate. It's good stuff. Although I was still kind of waiting for a da-na-na-na-na-na at some point. You know, like give me it once, come on, damn it. Anyway, but like I think Prey though, like I think Prey does have some lulls. It has some slow segments. It has some parts where we're kind of building up, and it's almost like I get why you do that, but at the same time, as someone who knows what a Predator is already, it's kind of taking its time getting to those beats. I think this movie, by comparison, immediately gets into like from the first second, I'm already like, okay, we're following a Predator on the Predator homeworld, and we're doing this and we're doing that, and what's this, and yeah, the story is relatively simple, but I don't really know if I'd say any of the Predator movies have overly complex stories. They're just like because the original Predator, right, to use that as because that's the gold standard, that's the best movie in the franchise, and it still is, right? No one's very few people anyway would be debating that. I think the original Predator is a simple story about a bunch of soldiers in the jungle who are being picked off one by one. There's a reason why they're there, but that's not really that important. It's just the picking off one by one, realizing they're being hunted. How do we fight back? Until it's just Arnold, and he has to like use everything he's learned to try and fight this ultimate killer, and that's it. But the reason why it's so good is the execution. It's how it's presented. It's the pacing. It's the cinematography. It's how the action scenes are staged. It's how the level of threat is maintained throughout and like escalating throughout. And this is, it's again relatively simple story. Predator has to go get his trophy to prove that he's worthy, kind of thing. There's a little bit more to it than that we're not spoiling, but like that's the broad idea. And yeah, he's on a weird alien planet with a bunch of weird alien life that even he's not expecting. This is not like he goes there and he's like an expert and he knows everything that's going to be here. He's surprised. He's caught off guard. He's having to think on his feet and get around things, and and yeah, there's a sort of companionship element to it. But to me, it's the creativity and like the stuff that he's fighting and the character kind of arc that makes this work for me. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't feel that cynical coming out of this. I just don't feel like if anything, I was pleasantly surprised with how positive I felt coming out. Again, not saying that I was expecting to not like it per se. I just I knew there was a lot of room for failure, I guess, going into it. So yeah, that's about it. All right. Anywho, should we get spoilers then?
Sure. Let's do it.
Ready to do that? All right. So spoilers for Predator Badlands. You have been warned, everyone. We're about to go, knee deep in it. So here we go. We're about to go where I'm trying to make a joke about Tia's legs not being there, but it's not quite clicking in my head.
I'm not even sure what you were setting up there, but all right.
Yeah. Which is not a spoiler for the record. Like that's in the trailer, and even the poster. Yeah. She's on his back, kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, movie starts on Janta Prime, and it's again it's very silent to start with. We see this Predator who turns out to be Deck. Come to this location. He grapples up, and there's another Predator shows up, and they end up fighting. They're brothers. And this was like the one, like I was thinking this was really cool that we were seeing kind of just this interaction, but the one concern I had here is that when they were fighting and jumping around, that's where I was getting a little bit of that CG figures jumping around kind of feel. And I was like, okay, like some of this doesn't look amazing, but like I like the overall thing they're going for. Luckily though, I did like everything afterwards though, which was like, it's sort of implied that he, like he's losing, he falls down, does Deck, but then he still keeps fighting anyway. And in the next scene, it sounds like his brother is agreeing to let him go on this hunt to prove that he's a worthy predator. But the reveal is, when their father shows up, is that the father was expecting the older brother to kill him because he is the weakest, and the weakest must be culled from the clan.
There's this backstory that they get into very briefly. I don't think it ever gets resolved as to what it fully was, but very briefly they bring up that the whole reason the brother is so chill with letting his younger brother, with letting Deck like get away with things, is that something happened in their past where the brother Quay would have died and Deck is the one who saved him. So he's like, in Quay's mind, he's already kind of like proved himself to be competent to some extent.
Yeah, and Deck's missing like part of one of his fangs as a result of this incident. So, and he always has his hair sort of tied back compared to his brother, Quay.
He's also like seemingly like 5 feet tall. Like he's very short for a predator.
Relative to the other predators, but he's actually probably like 6'7" or something like that, an actual height.
Yeah. Well, I was going based off of later on we get Elle Fanning, she gets her legs back, and when they stand side to side, it's pretty much the same height, I would say.
Was it? I'd have to look at them again. I at that point, I wasn't thinking about their height too much, but yeah, I mean, no, because like the regular predator in the first movie is 7 foot tall, so if this is short for a predator, I'm still thinking he's like, you know, maybe not. Maybe he's under 6 foot, but I don't think he's just 5 foot flat. That's really small.
Oh yeah,
that's a tiny woman.
Elle Fanning is 5'9" so
that's actually
just
kinda,
under 6 foot.
That's kind of tall for a woman, actually. That's above average.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at pictures of her standing next to Dakota Fanning, and she just towers over her sister.
Well, that is weird because they look so alike. You'd think they'd be the same height. Okay.
Yeah.
Strange. And Dakota's the older one too. That must be something she loves.
Oh yeah. No, my younger brother's taller than me by a good like 6 inches.
You must love that.
Yeah, no, it does great things for my self-esteem. Love
it. you were the rough draft before the true specimen of the family was born.
Nah, he's the freak. He's the one who's too tall. I'm right.
But yeah, so the whole thing where the dad kind of traps him in this laser trap, and he's like, all right, kill your brother. Like, there's time to get rid of him. This is an honorable death. And it was kind of nice seeing like an older predator, because we see kind of like the sort of the gray hair kind of coming from behind the mask.
He was giving me strong Immortan Joe vibes. Like, that's it. Obviously, we don't actually see him without the mask until very much later in the movie, but just the white hair and coming in with that big authoritarian presence, I'm like, yeah, he'd probably get along well with Immortan Joe.
I mean, I think that's just given the Predator design grey hair makes you think of Immortan Joe, because of Immortan Joe's mask.
He's also got like the extra frills on him. Like everyone else, you think is more of a stripped down sort of Predator look. He is like clan leader look to him.
Yeah, he's the leader of the whole group. But of course, the brother Quee does a face turn here, and instead of slashing him with the sword, he slashes the trap to let him out. And the father immediately says, oh, you want to protect him? That's a sign of weakness. That means you have to be killed too. So his brother like fights the father and does lose, but kind of is like able to like get the ship like on his like wrist computer thing. He's like sort of trying to tap away, and his arm gets cut off. That was why like immediately I was like, oh, I'm not even going to worry about this PG-13 thing. Like we're like 5 or so minutes out of the movie, and I just saw an arm get cut off. Like we're doing fine.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't worried about the rating at all going into it. It was honestly until after the movie ended, I was like, did that do anything to earn an R? And then I checked, I was like, oh, okay, it was PG-13. Never mind.
Yeah. So he taps on the buttons and he gets the ship launched. But it's the whole thing where like he gets decapitated. Like the father decapitates his brother. So on top of this whole like I have to go and prove myself by getting he picks like this monster as well that's like mythical to the Predators, because even their dad's scared of it. The Kalisk. The Kalisk, yes. So he sends the ship over there just before he gets decapitated, and Deck is on the ship and gets like knocked out when he gets knocked around. And
he comes back to like as the ship is entering the atmosphere of this planet, so it starts tearing up in an asteroid field, and he's like, "Oh crap! Can I save this?" And then like immediately he has to eject out because it's just going to explode. Yeah, this is where the movie, like I was enjoying kind of the family stuff because it was kind of new and exciting to see that with Predators. The moment where the movie kind of really captured me though was the shot of him coming down, like once he ejected out of the ship. I really got that sense of descending through the sky. Like it did a really good job with the velocity and the feeling of going down with them, because it was kind of just like sort of this over the shoulder shot of him sitting was effectively in a chair going down. And like, you know, you're getting a glimpse of the planet and some flying creatures, but like just the feeling of it going down I thought was really effective.
And I was like, okay, I think if this is how this movie's going to feel, if it's going to feel this visceral when he gets into action like this, like I think I'm going to be enjoying this.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I really like that sequence. I think for me, you kind of said it yourself, when everyone's all jumping around and there's like a mix of different creatures all moving at the same time or whatnot, that's the only time where I feel like the blurriness, the blend of the CG all just kind of merges together, and it's kind of hard to keep track of what's going on. I did, for most of the third act, I was fine, but when we were going up against like the big creature, that's where I was like, I'm having trouble telling what's actually going on in this sequence.
So he lands, of course, crash lands, and these big tree tentacle things start like coming down and try to get at him. And even this is kind of a fun sequence because he's like sort of dodging them. He sort of stabs one, but another one comes out. Maybe the big money moment here is when he sort of slices like long ways down like the middle of one of them, and it's kind of this slow motion shot for like a bird's eye view.
Doing that. That's like his favorite thing to do, is slice right down the middle of a creature.
Hey, it looks good. I mean, it looks good, and he comes across as a badass, and he eventually, though, he realizes he has to run. He actually runs up one of them and like jumps to a cliff to get away, and that's kind of like how his initial encounter comes to an end.
Yeah, and that's where we get our title drop. He gets up to the top of the cliff, he looks out at the vista, and like it comes up Predator Badlands.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. Like I knew they were going to do a late title drop because they didn't Prey as well. And just like Prey, for some reason they had to ruin it with the copyright thing underneath the title.
I don't even remember it from Prey, but it was so weird in this one because it's like the vista shot. You barely want anything to interrupt it. So when it comes up Predator Badlands, you're like, all right. But at the top it says a 20th Century Studios production, and then at the bottom it says 20th Century Studios, all rights reserved. And I'm like, did you need that? Did you really need that here?
What's so weird though is almost every movie doesn't need to do this with their title screen, but both Prey and Predator have done it. And I think it was a little bit worse in Prey actually, because in Prey they did that thing where the camera like went up into the sky and revealed it as if it was already sitting there. So the camera was like sort of tilting up, and like the copyright thing was the first thing you see as the camera's going up. So I think that's a little bit worse than when this where it just all comes together at the one time. But still though, it annoyed me because I'm like, why do you keep like Trachtenberg? Is this like if you get like a weird like fetish for putting the copyright thing with the title?
He read the story of It's a Wonderful Life being put in the public domain accidentally. He's like, that ain't happening to me. We're copyrighted, damn it.
But it's not even his copyright. That's Disney. Disney and Fox. Fox. There's 20th Century Studios. The Fox part's the part that's not there anymore. But you know what I mean. I still call them Fox for short, just because that's what they always were.
No, dude. When the fan, because it's the same opening intro. That dun, 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 like I'm like, that's the Fox noise. You're never gonna get it out of my head that's not the Fox noise.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good tail drop though, regardless of the stupid copyright stuff ruining it.
So just before we get too deep into it, just a few things I wanted to add on for motivational purposes. The idea that he has to go to this planet and he has to take a trophy. He got to pick which one he wanted, and he stopped specifically on the Caliscans, like, that's the one I want. And his brother's like, no. That's you will absolutely die. And he's like, no, if that's the one Dad's scared of, then I have to take that one. And he's like still arguing as the dad arrives, so they don't get a chance to change it. But I love that idea of the brother's still just like, look, I get you want to prove yourself, but can you please like actually do something that's realistic here instead of this? And then the other thing is that the whole reason that he's doing this is that he's not technically a Yautja. That's a thing that is over the course of the movie. He's called Deck of the Yautja by Thea, and he's like, nope, that's not me, because I'm not part of the Yautja yet. I haven't earned my place in the tribe. And the reason that he is going out here to do this is that once you earn your place in your tribe, that's when you get your cloaking tech. He doesn't have his cloaking tech for this whole movie.
Yeah, I actually, for whatever reason, never realized, because they don't say cloaking tech. They just say cloak. And it never clicked in my head that he was talking about the invisibility cloak until the end when he actually goes and takes it. I thought he was going to literally get a cloak. In the traditional sense.
He's like, nice.
Because I didn't notice. I was like, oh, he's not got the invisibility tech. And I thought, oh, we're not just going to get that this movie. It actually comes up in a really cool way at the very end when it does get introduced into the movie. It's one of those things where the movie does a decent job of, like, it has all of the staples of what you think a Predator has or like pops up in a Predator movie, but it does them kind of spread out, and it does them in some ways in a very different manner than what you'd be expecting with them. Again, it's kind of subverts your expectations a little bit as to how certain pieces of technology are used.
Very early in the movie, they explicitly show him getting stripped of like most of his tech, or showing how at the very least it's useless. Like there's very few things that he's actually able to use to any effect on this planet. I feel like by the time we hit the third act, the only thing he really still has on him is the sword thing, with the red glowing edge. Yeah, everything else is either used, left on the ship when he ejects out, or just gone in general.
Yeah, but he goes, looking. He sees these weird bugs that, when they bubble up, they explode, like a little bit of pyro. And he's, and this is actually one of the first moments where you sort of get like they can really do a performance with this character, because the way he kind of like, sort of, not chuckles, but kind of just has this sort of little look of like,
Yeah,
like when he realizes
an amused shrug. He sees it it bubbles up in his hand. He throws it away. It explodes elsewhere, and he's like, "All right."
And I'm like, Chekhov's bubbly bugs. There's a lot of Chekhov's things in this, actually, as it turns out. But that was the first one. So that was the first one that I noted in my head as a Chekhov's thing. So yeah, obviously he goes traipsing about and runs into Elle Fanning's character Thea, which is a synth from Milan-Jutani. Now, I think the trailers were probably quite close to the chest about how much, like, obviously she was in the trailer, but like I kind of got the vibe from the trailer that she was like here on her own, abandoned because she was damaged or lost or whatever. Obviously that turns out not to be exactly the case. There is still a presence from other Weyland-Yutani synths on this planet. Would you believe it? Weyland-Yutani want to capture an alien because they think it'll be a useful weapon.
That doesn't seem like them. I don't see them doing that.
They want the callus. They want the callus because because as we find out later, it can regenerate, and that's the big thing.
Yeah, I feel like if you have knowledge of Weyland-Yutani going into this, you have a slightly different presentation of this movie, because Thea presents it as, oh, we were just exploring, just general exploration, and then the callus attacked us completely unprovoked, and we only just barely managed to survive, and I'm me without my legs.
Yes. Chekhov's thing number 2 is that when he does come across her and she's like up in this little ridge place, he's walking through like a flower field that releases darts that will sedate you and knock you out, and this flying creature that's around like comes down and picks you off once the flowers have knocked you out, and she's like yelling, and at first she's yelling a different language, and then she sort of fiddles with her settings a little bit, and she's got a universal translator. The idea being here that the Predator hears his language, but we hear her speak in English. But when he speaks, he still speaks in his language with subtitles. I kind of like that. I thought that was a nice little bit.
I liked it, but I had a moment of panic when she introduced the universal translator, because I was like, are they going to have him speak in English for the rest of this movie? Because that's going to suck. That is going to be the worst thing they could do.
I think Trachtenberg and co. rightly realised that it would just be goofy if he was speaking English. So they didn't do that. But they gave us like a character who we can at least hear speak English for a bit, so that we're not just always reading subtitles.
Reading the subtitles. I'd love to see an original draft or like a cut where Elle Fanning actually has to do the Predator language, has to speak Yautjan, and just see her wrap her tongue around that. Just like,
she does for a scene later.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying like throughout the whole thing. I want to see like some of her performances where like she's all bubbly and cheery and whatnot, but just giving that really gruff language.
So he's not like overly into the idea of getting her down or giving a shit about her. He's just going to go on his way. But then he gets, poisoned with the things, the bird's coming down, and he's like, shit, I'll throw my throwing dagger thing at her and she can get out. So she ends up kind of diving across at this alien bird thing and kills it and ends up saving him. And when he wakes up, she's kind of there like checking on him, and again she's very bubbly. She's saying all these things, and she's like, hey, you're here for the callus, I can help you go find the callus. I mean, hey, look, I survived the callus, look at me. That's why I'm only half of a body.
I survived, as he's literally holding her up like, you don't have a lower half. What do you mean you survived?
Yeah, is that the part when he's like already holding her up by kind of like the shoulder, so she's just sort of dangling in his hand? Yeah, and it's a great little moment. There's a good laugh here where he just drops her, and that actually becomes a thing for the next little bit where he just doesn't care. Like, she's telling stories about like either her research team, what happened to her, or whatever else, and he just like drops her at random points, and he just clearly isn't listening to her, doesn't care. Like, it really sets up kind of this one-sided relationship.
Oh yeah, part of what his reason for wanting to leave her behind is that the Yautja have to complete this task alone. Yautja always hunt alone.
Yes,
but she makes the point of saying,
she has a justification.
I'm not a person. Yeah, I'm not a person. I am a machine. And he's like, oh, so I can use you like a tool. So if I just take you along, you're not helping me as a person. You're helping me the same way my wrist computer would help me. Yeah, that's allowed.
Yeah, you're like an extra spear. That's all you are. You're just another weapon in the arsenal. So he's carrying her for a while, then he makes kind of like a little, well, not a backpack, but he sort of turns her into a backpack with some vines and whatnot. And so he's carrying her on his back, and they go on from there. We get them, dealing with some various creatures early on. I guess the other Chekhov's things, these little kind of snake eel things at the river.
I'm going to call them insects, but their thing is that they can spit acid.
And I don't think insects work. I think eel or reptile feels better to me just because of what they look like.
I was thinking like centipede, sort of.
Yeah, but they're much bigger than that, though, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, everything on this planet's much bigger. They have a sandworm.
I know, but I'm trying to compare it to something in the real world, and there's things that are actually this size.
I mean, if we're talking size, then yeah, I'd say it's probably like ferret sized, and it's also like a tube that crawls up onto them at some point. So yeah, I'd say around that size.
Yeah. So there's that, and then the big scene that really kicks everything off is they find the field of he wants to hunt and get food, right? And there's these alien bison, we'll call them
bison,
right? And they've got these big kind of like thick skull, like armored heads, but they open up to where their mouths are. So that's obviously where he's going to have to attack them if he gets in close. But they're in this field of razor grass. This grass is so sharp that if they go in, it will cut them to shreds. So also another Chekhov's thing that he's going to... Basically, everything this movie introduces, he ends up using in the third act to build an arsenal so that he can go and do the third act. And that's kind of what we're getting at. But
which, like, we'll get to it when we get to it. But that basically, as I'm realizing that these are Chekhov's items, I'm like, oh, we're actually going to have the Predator scene. Like the scene of getting geared up to fight against whatever the threat is. But the guy gearing up is the Predator. So interesting that we get that turnaround on that. Yeah,
no, I like that. That's a good way of doing it. So he's trying to like deal, like, okay, how do I deal with this space? But Tia's yelling about this tree thing that she's worried about. And it ends up being this giant creature that kind of hangs out above the top of the trees and like grabs them and tries to eat them. And there's this other creature that gets introduced around here, who I think we end up just calling Bud, right? Who's this kind of, like waist high, kind of.
I'd say he's like a blue chimp looking thing, but his whole thing is that he can like curl up like an armadillo, and his outer back shell area is like rock hard, and it isn't affected by the razor grass.
Yeah, I would definitely compare more to like a monkey or a chimp or something like that. But yeah, you're right. He's got this kind of hard shell. It can kind of sort of stick out to like rock up basically.
If anyone's ever played Legend of Zelda, the later ones, it's like a Goron. It's the not turtle-esque, but it's in that same sort of vein.
I'll trust that reference is accurate. I don't know it, but
yeah, he's also blue, and he is very marketable.
So, yeah, I mean, Deck didn't want anything to do with this little thing, but this little thing, Bud, ends up saving them, because when they're about to go into this thing's mouth, he jumps up and sort of shells up to sort of block the bite, and they get dropped, and we get, again, a very inventive sequence here. This is where I was really starting to feel like, everything he's encountering on this planet is so inventive, where nothing's felt the same twice. and it feels like we're doing a lot of interesting things. Eventually we get a tree knocked over so they can run out onto the field where the bison are, and like, you know, there's a whole just action set piece that happens here dealing with this thing.
The one thing that is major here is that while they're out in the forest area, not in the grass, one of the bone bison charges at the group of them, including Bud now at this point, and Deck uses his sword to just chop it straight down the middle, which Bud stares at him in awe, like, wow, you're incredible, you're amazing, super cool. But then because the tree thing, the bug thing that tried to eat them before, is now pissed off at Bud, it starts chasing him out into the razor grass, and Deck, I think under Thea, like pushing him, but maybe he does it on his own as well, goes out to save Bud out in the razor grass and takes out the monster there as well.
Yeah, I think it's open where she is pushing for him to go save him, but you could argue that Deck's just deciding that he wants to kill this monster because it's a big monster that's just attacked him, and he's, you know, he's been a predator. But yeah, basically by having Bud go out, he kind of also makes a bit of a path where the grass is now flattened potentially. But yeah, he ends up stabbing it in the head or whatever. It's a fun sequence.
That's where the tree comes down. He literally cuts down a tree just so he can land on top of this monster and cut its head open.
Yeah. And it's just, again, everything about it just felt so inventive to me. It felt like, oh, they really put a lot of thought into just making every creature or everything on this planet feel different and unique. So, no, and this, you know, they end up having the campfire scene that night where Bud's hanging with them. Now, he gets stitched in the morning because the Predator does not want to have this little guy around. He's bringing Thea as a tool to go do stuff, but doesn't care about this Bud character. But Bud notably spits on him, and it basically, you're like, oh, she's like, oh, I think Bud is marking you, and saying you're part of their clan now. Yeah.
And this is where, you know, it's the campfire scene, so everyone opens up a little bit. What are their motivations? What are we doing here? What's going on? Thea's thing is that she lets in that she has a quote-unquote sister, a companion that was in her group.
Although, worth mentioning, she does not use that word. It's actually Deck later on that first says that word, and then she's like, oh, I guess because she is my sister.
Yeah, he's talking about his brother, so he's like, oh, it sounds like the equivalent. Sounds like your sister. Her name is Tessa, and Thea's idea is during the thing, they got separated. She's just trying to go find Tessa. She's sure that she's still out there because they had such a bond together. They were always so close. Meanwhile, she manages to probe Deck and ask a couple questions about, like, what are you doing here? What's going on? And she manages to get out, like, parts of the brother story and saying, like, oh, you're here, like, you're grieving. You're so upset about the loss of your brother, and you're, like, doing all this stuff or whatever. And he's like, no, that's not in my race. That's not what I do. Screw that. I'm not playing into that stuff. So he's still very hard-shelled, but he's opening up a little bit by sharing his history. Yeah,
grieving's a weakness, so he cannot grieve. That's the message that he puts out. And I think it's actually around here after she brings up the sister for the first time. She says something to sort of like give us a sort of leadway into the hard cut, where it hard cuts to what looks like the dead sister, because it's also a synth, but like she looks kind of turned off and like just kind of like, you know, there's big marks across her face.
Her eyes are white with the Weyland-Yutani logo, so she just looks like they're, you know, rolled back dead.
But she's been put into like a bay, sort of like med bay, but for like bots, and like you know, computer connects to its mother, of course, just like a lot of the other Alien movies, and she's basically probed and is like, hey, okay, so the Kalsk attacked your team of synths, and we kind of learned some of this from Thea, which is this idea that the synths were sent here because too dangerous for humans to come and do this job, but her and her quote-unquote sister were different from the other synths in that they were given feelings so that they could have like understanding of the animals on the planet. So it's like, okay, so they're a little bit different to all the other ones who are just kind of drones effectively, who don't have any kind of like, you know, sense of right or wrong. They're just following orders. But she's resuscitated, right? Little nanobot things come out and like sort of like fix all her wounds up, and like doesn't fix her eye, like one eye's still white, but fixes her up. And Mother's like, hey, you know, Thea's out there with a Yonja. You have to Like, that's a threat. A Yuncha being here is a really bad thing for us because he also wants the Kalisk and we want the Kalisk. That is your primary objective at all costs. You understand?
Yeah. I will say that does all come out, but in this initial scene, they say, hey, your task for organism, and then they like list off this code or whatever. Yeah. So it isn't immediately implicit that they are going after the Kalisk, but it is implicit that they're going after something. Theoretically, the dumbest audience members be like, oh my god, they want the Kalisk too? Who would have thought?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's the same thing. It's the alpha male predator on this planet, so why wouldn't it be that same thing? So,
especially if you know Weyland-Yutani, like they're not going to bother just trying to get like, oh look, the bone bison. Who gives a damn? You know,
and there was a couple of montages as well of like the traveling, which I think there was a little bit earlier, and maybe there's a bit after this, like when they wake up and like leave Bud behind, but we're like, you know, we're backpacking across a mountaintop and all that, and the music's playing. It's all very nice. We get a nice big, you know, some scenic shots of the planet, all that stuff.
Yeah, I am curious where they filmed this stuff, because while obviously the background plates and everything like that are very sci-fi'd up, you get like floating islands or whatever, the stuff that they're actually marching through, it doesn't feel like it's all CG, and it looks fantastic.
No, I'm definitely using a mixture here of having some real locations. Honestly, at one point they're next to a waterfall, and I swear it's the waterfall in the original Predator. You know, when Arnold like falls down and comes out covered in mud. I could be wrong. I mean, but I think they intentionally shot it at the same angle so that you would be thinking of that same location. At least that's the vibe I was getting when I was watching that scene.
It says principal photography began in New Zealand, so I'm assuming this is all just, you know, the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings locations.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't have been the same then, because Predator was shot in Mexico, if I recall correctly. But regardless, they get to kind of the site of the disaster, right, where her team was ambushed, and there's dead synths everywhere. She's going to find her legs, and like they're there. And the Predator's looking around, and there's obviously like, you know, Weyland-Yutani trucks and stuff that have been sort of flipped over, and just various debris of like the science research team that was here.
And by this point, like, they have become like essentially friends. Like, he's very warm towards her. He's actually cracking jokes at some point when she's like getting her legs sewed back on and all that. So it's pretty much the high point of their relationship up to now.
Yeah, I mean, I think warm might be a little bit of a stretch, but it does feel like he's made like one joke basically, and she points it out. It's a big deal that he's made a joke. It's like, wait, did you just make a joke?
Well, the only reason I point out how warm the relationship is because as he's looking around doing whatever, she's getting her legs sewn back on. He's basically like, all right, let's go find the Kalisk. And she says, you gotta go. And then gives him the reveal that they're there for the Kalisk. It's their hunt as well. And he feels genuinely betrayed by that. He feels upset that she's like been using him instead of
but
him using her.
It's not because like he considers her a friend yet, though. I don't think, like, because he yells out like, you're the tool, I use you. He's still sort of putting her down and saying, no, you're just a tool for me to use. So he's mad that she's used him like a tool, but it's not like oh, we were friends and I feel betrayed by you. Like, you know, it's a slightly different framing.
I get what you're saying, but I kind of read that as him just like covering up, you know, like he doesn't like the fact that he's been used in this way, so he's just lashing out angrily, sort of thing, calling her a tool.
I don't know. I didn't get that he was there yet, so I just never read it that way.
I don't think it was completely there, but I do think he was on his way, and that, you know, little joke moment is what really sold me for that.
Yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet. Actually, have they had the conversation yet? I think that they have. I think it was by the waterfall where she brought up the idea of the wolf, where she's asking questions about, you know, like, you know, his whole mantra and like all that, and he's talking about how the system works and all the rest of it and whatnot. And she's like, hey, on Earth there's this species called the wolf, and they hunt in packs. They don't hunt as individuals. They hunt as packs. And there's one who's the leader, this alpha, and immediately Deck is like, so he must be the strongest and have killed the most, and that's why he's the alpha. And she's like, no, the alpha's not the one that kills the most, actually. And he's very confused looking, and he's like, no, the alpha's the one who protects the rest. That's what makes him the leader. He's the one who looks out for everyone and keeps them all a unit and keeps them together, and it just introduces that idea because it becomes a really strong point for him later when he's making these big character turns later on, which is why I wanted to mention it.
I like when he walks away, though, because obviously he hasn't made that turn yet. He's like, well, I will still be the alpha, but I'll be the alpha that kills the most.
Yes.
Like, he's like, I'm going to take the title, but I'm going to do it in the way that my culture demands.
Yeah, it's a funny line, but it's not him making a joke, though. He's not trying to be funny. Like, he's being dead serious when he says it, but it's funny to us. So yeah, but you're right. She reveals this stuff, and there was a scene or two of the other Elle Fanning. What was the sister's name again?
Tessa.
Thank you. The evil one, right? She's clearly the villain. Like the second she's introduced, she's clearly going to be the antagonist of the story. But we see her.
I think from a design standpoint, they specifically like thinned out her eyebrows a lot more than the other one did, just to give her more of like an inhuman sort of look to it. Sure.
I mean, I think you could argue that they maybe got singed off during the attack, so it wasn't necessarily in universe. I mean, it wasn't like a difference they had before. It was
no. I'm sure they looked identical beforehand, but for the audience's sake, she's a lot more inhuman and therefore evil.
Yeah, it's a smart choice.
Of the audience.
Yeah, it's a very smart choice. But there's a couple of scenes with her checking out where the Predator crash landed in his little pod, and looking around there. And we also see like how effective her and her team are at taking out those like tree tentacle things that attacked him, because they just start wiping them out, and it just feels a little bit more malicious. It's kind of like, I mean, not that the characters did this in Jurassic Park, but it kind of reminded me of like how the main characters are in Jurassic Park or Jurassic Park 2 or 3, and then like the evil team of military come in and they just start like capturing dinosaurs, and it's kind of cruel, and you can tell it's more malicious.
Yeah,
it's not just for survival.
That's just it. It's the idea of the Predator fighting against the trees felt like a more even fight. It felt like whoever comes out of this is just like the better fighter, whereas it's a whole squad of them and they have flamethrowers, and it's like, oh, this was never a fair fight. You're just exterminating them for no reason.
Yeah. And then there's also a scene where they find the actual ship, because obviously when he jettisoned from the ship, that ship still crashed on the planet. So she goes there and looks in there, and by the way, the wall of skulls, maybe there's some interesting Easter eggs there, but there's definitely a T-Rex head. I definitely noticed that, speaking of Jurassic Park.
I saw a trivia. I noticed the skull, and I was wondering what it was. There was a trivia bit that says that it was the skull from War of the Worlds or possibly Independence Day, like the aliens from those movies. But, I was just looking around waiting for the Xenomorph skull. I was waiting for that to show back up.
Well, they've done that before already. That was Predator 2. Independence Day makes more sense because that's also a 20th century movie. So that actually makes a lot more sense if it's that one. But neat anyway. But anyway, it shows though that because obviously he's landed without most of his weapons. He's got his spear, he's got his saber, and a couple of grenades. But she like finds like his like shoulder cannon here, and like a couple of the other doodads, like these freeze grenades, which become a big thing in a minute. So it's like, I was like, this is how he's going to eventually get this stuff back, is that she's going to have it and he's going to take it from her. Now that's not exactly what happens. But it's like, hey, no, the shoulder cannon is here. It's going to be used in some capacity, just not in the way you think it is. So it's like, okay, that sets stuff up. That's nice. So when they're at this crash site, the Predator is so pissed about what Thea's done here and like the betrayal and all that he just sets off a giant explosion to lure the Callus towards them, and like does like a battle cry of the flames behind them.
It's such a good shot. Yeah. It's such like it's 100% just like trailer fodder, absolutely. But he just turns to the camera and the explosion goes off behind him as he's roaring to the sky. It's like, yeah, that's a good shot.
I mean, I don't even think it feels cheap though, because it feels to me exactly what like. It feels like a war cry from someone who takes their hunting seriously. And like, in the same way that in the first Predator, when Arnold like yells out to like lure the Predator towards him for the third act, this felt like that here, except this is a more naive like character who's not learned his lessons yet, and he's like being too cocky. And would you believe it? He puts up a fight with the big monster, the big Callus. But when he does like chop off like a tail or whatever, it just grows back like Wolverine. Like they just materializes, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't think you can kill this thing, my dear Predator.
Well, I do like that they, over the course of the fight, it does push that, because obviously he does some slashes at first, and then those heal, and then he cuts off the tail, and you're like, okay. can it regenerate a full limb? And then it shows it regrowing. It's like, okay, yes, it can. And then at the end of the fight, more or less, is he, after a whole bunch of like setup and acrobatics and very smart planning on his part, he manages to cut off its head. And you think, okay, that's zombie rules. That's pretty definitive of like, it's dead now. You did it. Yeah. And then it just merges back together again.
Yeah, notably it doesn't regrow, it merges back, so clearly it still needs to have the original head back, would be my assumption. But at one point he like grabs a door off of one of the Weyland-Yutani trucks and tries to use it as a shield, and I thought, oh, that's pretty badass, and then he gets knocked away immediately. And I was like, oh, damn it, I thought there was going to be a bit more shield play, but alright, I appreciate it.
I really like the way that he uses his environment here, which, spoiler, that's kind of like his whole thing throughout the course of the movie. Is at the beginning of the movie during the fight with his brother tells him, use the cave, like you need to be able to use your environment, and then the whole movie is just him learning that lesson. Here at
one point he grabs like a chain that's on like a winch and like uses that in the fight. There's a few different things that he does. He sets some flammable stuff on fire.
He traps the tail in like a door or something and uses that to be able to run up along his back, like Shadow Colossus style. And that's how he chops off the head. Yeah, a
lot of fun stuff here. This is kind of your big mid-movie fight sequence. There's actually a really funny laugh in here as well, because Thea's like reattaching her legs like in one of these little like trailers that are on this like site. And just as it's almost finished, like you can literally see the finishing touches of these nanobots like putting it all back together. The Predator gets like thrown into her and completely separates her in half again, and she's like, come on.
Yeah, I like that. And then there's a bit where she manages to crawl her way out of the trailer, and as Deck is down on the ground, he's about to be attacked, she fires off some shots with the machine gun, and that manages to allow him to get up and run. It looks like he's running over to grab her,
but and as
she's reaching out a hand, he just grabs the gun and goes, save yourself.
He does not give a shit about her. I like though that they're showing that she still cares about him, even though she's tricked him. There is this idea that she does like him, and she doesn't want to see him get captured by Weyland-Yutani. It shows some level of agency, even though she's been sort of tricking him up until this point. And then it is funny that he's still... But Joe, I like about that, though. It's not like he's just doing that because she betrayed him. I feel like he would have done that even if like that hadn't happened. Like that just still feels in character for him to just ignore her and take the weapon.
He's absolutely still at the point where the hunt is the most important thing. Yes. And like he's still trying to get his honor back and all that stuff.
Yeah, so none of this is working, of course, and it's not until one of his own freeze grenades, or technically it's one of his brother's freeze grenades, I guess, gets thrown in. Yeah.
Though not before he's pinned down to the ground with the callus, because it looks like he's about to die, but then the callus sniffs him, and it doesn't immediately kill him. It looks like it's backing up. It looks like it's not going to do anything.
It smelled the spit of what turns out to be the child, right? That's what Bud is. Bud is the callus child. We don't really know that for sure till later, but this kind of was the big hint that that's what was happening here.
The fact that you call him the child and do not make the Mandalorian reference, it's right there.
I don't see what the reference is, but okay.
Grogu, Baby Yoda, was throughout that entire season called the child.
I don't remember that. I'll take your word for it.
All right, fair enough.
I don't care, right?
Fair enough.
This is better than anything Star Wars has done in the last like 30 years. So, what do you want from me?
Man, and here I thought the comments we were getting on the reviews themselves for Star Wars were tough. This one's gonna blast us.
Okay, the Andor fans are going to come at me. Look, I get that Andor's supposed to be good, but I just can't be bothered actually watching it. Okay, just give me peace. Right, give me peace. But this is definitely better than all the Star Wars that I've seen from the last 30 years. I'll say that much.
Gotcha.
So, anyway, what was I saying? Right, so yes, right. Freeze grenade comes in. It freezes, doesn't kill the callus, but it freezes him, and it also freezes our boy Deck. Right, our Predator gets frozen, and he ends up waking up in like a transport like vehicle as they're moving, and yeah, I mean it sounds not particularly great. Like they're like, hey, we got this creature as well. That's pretty good. And basically the entire time, Thea's like, hey. Ayacha's not a really good specimen. They kind of fight back. Like, there's no point in taking him.
Look at him. He's not even 6 feet tall. He's not even a real Yacha. Just let him take his tech, send him back out to die.
Yeah. And honestly, at this point, I was thinking, like, wait, Thea, why did you ever feel like you had a connection with Tessa? Because Tessa is, like, talking like such a cold bitch this entire time, and you clearly give a shit about something. It's just, I don't know, I feel like you really, like, tricked yourself into thinking you had a sisterly relationship with this woman. Well, this synth.
Yeah, I agree that's how the movie presents it, and it does make Thea feel a bit more naive. I do wonder if during the battle, like, she gets rebooted essentially when she's brought back online by Mother, and whatever, connection there may have just been wiped at that point.
Tessa, you mean? Yeah, when Tessa's rebooted earlier.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so she may have been reset, yeah. No, you're right, that might have been a thing. I think it works, though. Like, I wouldn't even necessarily call it naive. I guess it is naive, but I would say it's more just this idea of, like, she lives in this team doing stuff for Weyland-Yutani, no real connections. It kind of makes sense that if she has the ability to feel connections, that she would kind of just latch on to the one person or the one thing that she can kind of, like, try and say is her family, even if she doesn't use that word. She's trying to just form some kind of connection, and kind of through this movie kind of forms a real connection with Deck, and to an extent Bud, like, actually kind of forms a new little weird makeshift family out of it.
Yeah, and I do like that idea that she keeps on trying to push and push and push, saying, hey, let him go, as he's literally getting electrotherapy. Like, they put in electrodes into his brain or just shocking him for seemingly no reason. She eventually kills the process, but that's where Tessa steps up and is just like, Thea, you suck. I don't even like you. Get out of here. Like, you're the worst. We're going to decommission you now. And that just breaks Thea as well. Yeah. And then the Predator starts talking to her in his language and is like, hey, like, this is just a kid's toy, this, that, because they brought in some of his stuff, and because Thea was trying to convince him, let's just take some of his weapons because the technology's cool, but we can let him go. And they bring in, like, one of the apes from the ship, and she's like, ask him what this is, and the Predator's like, it's just a kid's toy, but say that it's for looking at a map. Yeah. And she's like, okay, fine. And she translates it. And it's like, okay, what's going on? Because Tess isn't an idiot. She's like, wait, why are you talking in his language now? Like, why aren't you just talking with a translator? And it's because she's speaking in code. She's, not wanting her to know what she's saying. So this thing ends up exploding in Tess's face, which doesn't. No, it's not Tess. Tess leaves at this point.
It's the guy. It's
drone guy. Yeah.
But it ends up, like, sort of, like, kind of, like, doing a lot of damage to this back car, the vehicle, and they end up jumping out the back. Or no, at least the Predator does. She doesn't. She's still kept with them for a while. She's strapped down. But yeah, and she's like, wait, that's a kid's toy? And she's like, yeah, a Yunta child's toy. Like, we play with explosives when we are young.
The Yautja basically grew up in the 1970s. That's what we're saying here.
So, and then this is, he actually goes to, like, the ship, right? His brother's ship. He finds the ship and he goes in. And if I have, like, a small critique, I'm like, oh, he found that easy. I don't know how he found that, but he did, because we just cut to him already there.
I'm all right with him finding it. It's
not a big deal. It's just this sort of,
For me, it just is one of those things where the Yautja are really good at just tracking and hunting. And so the idea of, like, okay, I came into the planet here, I would know that the ship would land within this general area because I'm just good at doing that.
So he's looking around and he finds, like, some of his brother's stuff, mainly his mask, and he kind of, like, flashes back to what happened, and he uses the word wolf. He calls his brother the wolf, the idea being that his brother protected him, and now that he sees some level of strength in that. So he wants to go rescue Thea.
Yeah. And at this point, the ship does come back online. Like, despite it having crashed, it's like, hey, we can bail. Like, you can just leave the planet right now, go back home empty-handed, and let the Kalisk fall into Weyland-Yutani's hands, all that stuff. And of course, he just grabs his gear, heads back out again. He's not gonna do that.
Well, not much gear, because most of his gear that he has going into this third act is going to be all the stuff he makes by going around and using what he has learned in his environment. So he goes and gets the explosive, like, bug things. He goes and, like, takes out one of these leech reptile things with some because they established earlier that they just want fed, and like Thea threw some food at them and that was it. Here he just sort of lures one out, and I was not anticipating what they were going to do with this thing. Basically, this becomes his shoulder cannon. Like, it sits on his shoulder where the cannon is, and it spits at people, and I'm like, this is weirdly awesome. I did not expect this or see it coming, but here we are, and I'm kind of into it.
No, I love that. And then there's the flowers that explode, that paralyze. He goes back for that as well. And I was thinking about that one. I'm like, how can you get close enough to use that as a weapon? Like, you can't take it with you. It's just going to explode. But he makes essentially a little like bamboo style wraparound that as soon as the plant's about to explode, he just puts it over top and stops it from exploding. So now he just has a bomb that's ready to go off with these spikes at any given moment.
Yeah, he gets some razor glass and makes a whip out of that. He grabs like a tusk or a big tooth from one of the big beasts and uses that as because his claws that pop out actually got damaged right at the start of the movie. Like when he was leaving the planet at the start, the door shut on them. So he lost them like really right away. So he's going to go and make this jailbreak. He's going to go and find Thea and try and rescue her, and also get his prize, his trophy, if you will.
Yeah, it's important at this point that he also comes back across Bud, and Bud he's now realized is the baby Callisk, and so it feels less like he's going after the big Callisk for the trophy, and more so of, this is Bud's mom. I now have a newfound appreciation for family. We're going to free it for Bud.
Yeah, that's actually, obviously that's a really big, important change here compared to other Predator movies, is that the thing the Predator was supposedly hunting throughout the movie, he's now going to spend the third act trying to save. And that is kind of cool. It's neat. It really subverts the expectations of what you expect from a Predator story. So that was exciting getting into the third act. Obviously he's suited up and he's gotten stuff ready. He's also, he goes into the camp, this Willinjutani camp, which you've got the big frozen beast, you've got Tessa making plans and giving out orders, talking to the mother computer, and she lies and says the Predator's dead because she doesn't want to admit that she let it go or like lost them. And I was like, oh, that's going to come back and bite you, isn't it?
I love how the mother computer specifically is like, what happened to the Predator? And she's like, oh, the Predator was flawed and it was under 6 foot. Like, who even cares? And then the mother's like, what happened to the Predator? And she's like, it died. And she's like, oh, good. That means it won't be a threat anymore, right? And Tessa's like, yes.
Yep, that's exactly what it means. And important to note that the big crate that the Callisk is like, frozen inside of is being loaded onto this big cargo ship with a giant power loader.
Oh, see, this is where I was waiting for it. As soon as they showed the power loader, I'm like, they have a mother character that's a big beast. They have the power loader. How soon am I going to get my stay away from her, you bitch?
Oh, you don't? That line never comes up.
No, that's just it. They didn't, so good on them. But like, that's, as soon as I saw all these different pieces combining together, I'm like, it's all here. I want to see if they do it.
No, I mean, I never even thought they were going to say that line because that's not a Predator line, right? Like, no, if they're going to do a line, they're going to do something from Predator. But it's this big, huge version of the power loader. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's there because it's still Willinjutani, and it's it's loading these big crates onto the thing. Because these things aren't for fighting; they're for cargo maintenance and moving things around. Now, it does come back up, of course, in a big way, but we'll get to that in a second. There is, of course, the Predator, doing some, stealth ninja work, sneaking around the various, trailers and crates and taking out some of these synths, which was kind of fun, him using these new tools and, doing things a little bit differently, because it felt like, he's very good at this. But we also get this idea that the reason why he finds this place is that when he found Bud at the site of the original big fight with the Callisk, and that's where we find out, oh, Bud's the child of this monster, and it's made clear because he's standing in the footprint and all that. Thea's legs are still moving, so he kind of frees them from what they're pinned under, and the legs just start walking towards the rest of Thea. So they just follow the legs, right? And the reason why this is kind of a fun thing is the legs, when they get close to Thea and some other synths like see them and try and stop them, we get a fight scene between her legs and these two guys.
Yeah.
And this will mean nothing to you, but the legs on their own pull off a poison rana at one point in this fight, and I thought that was delightful.
I'm like 95% sure I have the move in my head of what it is, because it looks great. Again, like all the other action scenes in this, it's very creatively done, because you have at that point the top half of Thea is also freed, so they're working in tandem together, but they're not attached, so you get a lot of interesting ways to get that working. At
the end of the fight, she says good job, and then she holds out her hand, and the foot kicks her hand as if it's a high five. Like, right. That's the sort of malarkey we're getting into. I mean, it's just, obviously it's definitely a sillier like fight, but it's well done, and it does feel creative. It feels like they kept thinking of ways to do something a little bit different and more interesting than just a typical fight. So I always felt like there was someone being creative, you know, in terms of direction, in terms of choreography, all that stuff was working for me. So basically she goes off screen for a little bit, and then she like shows up like finally fully attached, you know, next time or Deck sees her, where it's like, oh hey, she's normal now, and they've got Bud there, and they put him like a Weyland-Yutani like raincoat and hood, same with her, so because basically he's like, hey, you go get the kid's mum, right, go save her, I'm going to go get my trophy. And at this point I'm thinking, oh well, clearly Tessa's the trophy now, right? Like she's the bad guy, she's the one who's done this to them. So that's what the plan is. So we get him like taking on like an army of the synths, and he's got like all the explosives with the needle like things set up. Like
this is the most, like, if we're talking about the idea that the Predator has been inversed, it's now he's the one who's setting up all the traps or whatever that is going to fall into it. This is the one that feels the most like it, because he's just sitting out in the open. All the guards are coming up around with their guns trained on him, and then he has his little shoulder cannon insect bug thing, shoots some acid at
it's not. It's, why do you keep calling it an insect? It's far too big to be an insect.
Everything's big on this planet. So it spits acid at the caterpillars, which then explode, causing a chain reaction of those paralyzing plants as well, which then fire more of the exploding caterpillars onto the synths, and then all of their heads just start exploding one by one.
Yep. Pretty successful. And then the big sort of like moment happens where Tessa comes out in the power loader, and it's much bigger than the power loader from Aliens. It's this big, clearly, this is for like picking up like shipping crates, this thing. And she comes out in it, and so this is kind of the one thing, right? Like, you know, like when I criticize like modern sequels, especially sequels to long-running franchises, where they're pulling the nostalgia stuff, they're pulling the nostalgia bait and doing the cheap pops, and it's like, hey, remember this thing. If you had told me, there's going to be a power loader in this, on paper I could see me being cynical about it, but I don't think, like, I think it's actually good for the most part. And the reasons why I think it's good is, one, inherently because it's in Predator and not Alien, it feels slightly more interesting, I suppose. I guess that's one thing. But the big thing, though, is that it's the villain who's in the power loader, and the Predator has to take on this giant power loader, right? That's such a subversion of what the power loader represents and like the mystique of the Alien and Predator universe. That's an interesting way of playing around with it. So having the Predator like jump up and try and break into the cockpit of it, and like not being able to get in, and you know, like, and even the fact that she's got the shoulder cannon on and she tries to shoot the Predator, but the little the reptile thing on his shoulder like jumps out and like takes the hit.
Look, it was a fine enough moment, but that was the one moment I was like, were we supposed to care about the shoulder thing by now? Because, like, don't get me wrong, it's useful, but like, I didn't think they had an emotional connection.
I don't know. I don't know if you're supposed to necessarily care that much about it as a personality or whatever. Right. But
it's just they gave his death like a slow motion. They really hung on his dead body. We saw Deck be like, no, and I'm like, all right, sure, I guess.
I think it's just Deck valuing the beings that he's with now, right? It's just showing more of his growth, I think, more than anything else. I don't know if I don't think this creature had enough time with the audience to really,
right,
get attached to it in the same way of like Bud or whatever. So, yeah, but the fight happens and all this is going out, but eventually, like when it looks like Deck's going to lose, that's when Mama Callus comes running in because she's been freed and takes on the power loader, and Predator helps her out by jumping on the back and starts pulling out cables so that the arm doesn't function properly. And I was
gonna say, because this thing has like a giant chainsaw attachment to it, so it's pinned. The chainsaw has gone through the callus, and obviously the callus can regenerate. But
for the visual,
the chainsaw's still in there.
Yeah, for the visual, it's less chainsaw, more buzzsaw. It's more circular.
Oh, right. That's what I meant.
Yeah, it kind of pops out into like a, because it's not there at first. It kind of pops out like a transformer. Like, oh, this is like a tool that it has for, whatever work. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, but obviously the callus can regenerate around that, but as long as it's still buried in his body, it's not able to do that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like the Predator and the callus kind of working together here. One of the freeze grenades, she tries to throw one of them. But the Predator is able to help deflect it, and it goes into like the arm of the power loader and freezes the arm. So then the callus breaks it off, and then so like she gets got basically and gets eaten by the callus, and it's a whole big thing. And then in the aftermath, right? It's kind of like Bud comes up, and it's kind of clear that the Predators help save them both, and they get this sort of touching moment where the Predator like sort of puts out his hand and touches the callus head, and it's kind of sweet, and then the callus kind of sort of nudges forward as if to say, no, head to head, like this is how you show like friendship.
This is our clan, this is how we do things.
So the Predator puts out his head and touches his head with his head, and it's kind of this sweet kind of bonding moment. It's very Planet of the Apes, actually. This is something that the apes did in those movies. And it's like kind of the sweet moment where, like it's kind of funny. Like by the time we get to this fight, because this thing is the parent of, we never really get a sense if it's the mother or father. I assume mother just because it's only one of them. But
I think they say mother at some point. So yeah.
But I think because of that, we do care a little bit with this monster. By the time it's fighting the power loader, you're like, I'm kind of rooting for the monster now. It's kind of like a good guy.
Right. Well, it all comes back to the idea of, this has been done tons of times. Avatar is a big one, of the natural way of things and then the industrialization, the force that comes in and tries to make it their own. And you always want to root for nature in those cases. Yeah.
I mean, it's even more than that in this case with Will and Jutani, because they're just corrupting nature. They're trying to like use it for war and like take it and turn it into weapons and all sorts. But normally when they're going after the xenomorph's so unsympathetic. You don't feel bad for the xenomorph. You just feel like the other idiots. But in this case, it's like, no, we actually sympathize with these creatures now.
But in those cases, by that point, it's a three-way thing where you have Wayland, the alien, and then our heroes who have separated from Wayland at that point.
So, but the big thing that happens here is that then from inside the stomach, Tessa sets off another freeze grenade and completely blows up the callus from the inside, which seemingly does kill it, right? There's no, because I was thinking, we're going to get like a T-1000 style like reformation of it all coming back together, but that doesn't happen. And we get Bud looking very sad, like, that's it, mummy bear's gone, and she does not look great either. Tessa obviously was in there for the explosion, comes out, like, she's all, her face is kind of messed up, the hair's mostly gone, not looking so great. And the Predator kills her, although notably it's actually Bud who goes up and rips out the spine and skull of the synth and holds it up like the Predator normally would, which kind of calls back to the campfire scene earlier where Bud kept copying whatever the Predator was doing, and that was getting some chuckles from the audience in my showing.
Well, Bud's absolutely there for a limited amount of comedic relief, no doubt. But I like that it does finish up both the character arcs of, we want Deck, even though he's moved past the need for needing to get his trophy and prove himself to his original father and all that, he still has to be the one that kills Tessa. This has to be his hunt, more or less. But then we also have the having a face down with her, and of course she looks gruesome at this point. Tessa looks awful, and Thea basically comes out and says, "You're not my sister." thus getting into the idea of, you know, family is what you make it, and she's chosen her clan and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And the Predator's chosen his clan, and this is kind of your ending to that. But it's like, okay, so what's he going to do now? And sure enough, he does go back to his planet.
I will say, I fully expected the movie to end there. Like, I maybe we get like one short little epilogue scene of him just being like, all right, the ship is able to go back to the planet, but we don't have to, or we can go anywhere else in the universe. But I did not expect them to not only go back to the planet, but have an entire full scene there as well.
No, we get, I mean, it was actually just a quick epilogue in Prey, but it's mirroring the idea in Prey of like Nadu going back to the tribe at the end of the movie with the head. It's kind of that here, where the Predator comes back with the head of the synth and says, "That's my trophy." But yeah, we get an awesome fight scene here at the end, because he shows up, he throws down the thing, and the dad's like, "What is this? You're a disgrace
that
to
ain't
us."
A Calisk.
Yeah.
What the hell? This is just a robot head. They got like 50 of them.
And he's, you know, we've got more Predators here, like, hey, kill him, right? They take him, he's a disgrace to our clan. And these two Predators come up and try and fight him, and Deck like just takes them both out and does it in a really cool way, where there's a bit of, you know, dodging and hitting, but the final blow is that he holds up his spear and stabs them both at the same time on either side. But my favorite detail of this is that they're not both like facing the same way. One's like facing into the spear, and the other one's like facing towards the camera. And I think the fact that they're not in like symmetry makes it feel oddly more real to me, where like, oh, they wouldn't be perfectly synced up. So it's that detail of them having them different poses made it work for me. And then it's like, okay, the dad has to fight himself. And this is where the dad just like, you know, hits a oh, cloak. Like, you know, not right away, he fights him a little bit first, but then he turns on his cloaking device, and I'm like, oh, we're getting the invisibility cloak. We're actually doing this. And now he's having to fight his dad, who's effectively cheating a little bit. Like, he's, you know, he got stabbed in the leg, and he's like, oh, I need to use my superior technology to win.
This is also what he did to the brother in the opening sequence. He you know, was fighting the brother. The brother may have landed a hit or two, but he ultimately just turned on the cloak and then killed the brother while cloaked, pretty much.
Yeah. So he is, you know, holding his own well enough. The cloaking device comes on, and we see them fighting when one of them's invisible. And I thought, this is pretty cool. It really makes it like a tough fight for him. But then he does something really smart. He like does some dots on his wrist computer, and the ship behind him starts kicking up a bunch of dirt. And it basically makes him visible, because, you know, it forms around him. So then he's able to keep fighting his dad, and ultimately wins. And it's, you know, it's a fun sequence. He talks about how he's got his own clan now, and then we see Bud and Thea come out of the ship. And, you know, this is kind of your big ending, cut to title kind of thing.
He takes his dad's cloaking device out of his wrist thing and says like, all right, there we go. That's all I wanted. Now. I'm out. Yeah. Also, Bud is like, it's the thing of like, what is it? Groot within the Guardians of the Galaxy, where I think it's over the course of one of them, like in the end credit scene, he goes from like baby Groot to like teen Groot.
Oh, he's
at the
teenage,
end of this one. Yeah, he's like halfway to full-size Calisk now.
Yeah. He's like the size of a elephant, I'll say. I'll compare it to something vaguely
roughly
normal. So yeah, because the title, but just kind of like Killer of Killers, actually, earlier this year, the animated movie, there's immediately a scene after the title where a ship's coming in on the horizon, and like they're looking around, and Ellie's like, hey, you know, is a friend of yours or whatever? And he's like, no, that's my mother. And then it goes to the credits, and I'm like, that's a hell of a weird sequel tease you've just hit me with.
Yep. I kind of want to go back and watch Killer of Killers, because wasn't it that the big leader thing there was specifically deigned as like female or a mother in that point as well?
Oh, I can't remember.
I vaguely remember that. I'm curious, because they specifically hang on this ship shot for a while. So I'm just wondering if like it's the same ship design or something.
Yeah, or is this the ship they took at the end? You know, the good guys when they were escaping?
No, maybe.
But no, they crashed, did they not? I think they crashed at the very end of that movie, now I'm thinking about it.
No, they escaped, because then it's they send out the whole armada to say like, oh, we're going to chase after you.
That's right.
Spoilers
okay,
for
right.
Killer of Killers.
No, I think you're right. Again, my memory's fading me here a little bit, but yeah, no, I mean, obviously the little sequel tease or the little cliffhanger at the end after the title. I don't know what to make of that, really. I'm like, okay, I hope we get more. And to be fair, the movie, it was looking a little bit bad, actually. They were projecting it at 25 million opening, and that was looking a little bit weak, but it actually is coming at 40 million today as of Sunday. So it's had a decent opening. It's slightly above the last, because the last like 2 Predator movies that released in theaters, like Predators and The Predator, both opened at the exact same figure pretty much. This is a little bit higher than them. It's never been like a huge performer in the box office, but has a lot of, has a lot of followers. It gets a lot of like plays like on home video and that kind of thing. So hopefully this is living up to kind of the expectations that there was set with it. I mean, this one feels like it had to be a bit more expensive than the last one, so hopefully it's going to do enough to justify it.
When you say the last one, are you talking Killer of Killers or Prey?
And neither. I'm talking about the last 2 that were in theaters.
Oh, okay. So The Predator?
Predators and The Predator, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Both of them.
Gotcha. All right.
And then Predator and Predator 2 aren't even worth comparing because they're from such a different era with different inflation that there's no even reason to even bring them up. But plus also a very different time where movies played in theaters for a long time and opening weekend wasn't like the thing that everyone looked at the time.
Right.
Movies would open to 5 million and it'd be fine because they'd make 5 million every weekend for like 4 months. And that's how it worked back then.
I on one hand, like, I understand it. I understand that, like, with streaming and all that, things had to have changed. But that's kind of the one thing that I just, like, I really wish that we could have stretched out a little bit longer. Obviously, pandemic didn't help, but just the idea of we are able to have a movie just be in the theaters for a while. We don't have to, like, have every day just be this thing of, like, oh, if it's not making X amount of money, we're cutting it immediately.
I mean, it's not just streaming that's done. I mean, that's obviously made it even worse. But like even in the 2 decades before streaming, it was already more. It was more like the opening weekend's the big thing, and then your second and third, fourth weekends make them as big as you can. And it's only the rare movie that's got the super long legs, like a James Cameron film, that gets to be there for 3 months.
I just remember, like, once I started having my own spending money, I would go to the movies and I'd be able to see a movie that like came out a month and a half beforehand. It would still have like 2 or 3 show times for like pretty prime time stuff. And I'd still be able to go see it then. And that's, I don't expect that to ever happen now.
Yeah. It's also just like so many movies coming out, like they have to just get rid of things to make room for new stuff. Right. And especially on the premium screens where it's like, hey, most cinemas only have 1 Dolby screen or 1 IMAX screen. And that's the big premiere screen, and like you'll be lucky if you get 2 weeks of a movie on that because they have to make way for the next one. Yeah.
I mean, I will say my current theaters that I go to, because I recently moved, neither of them have the like recliner seats. Like they haven't been decked out with that. So at the very least, I'm not worried about ever getting seating because they've got like 200 seats in these theaters each.
Yeah. That must suck. I'm used to the recliner now. I can't go back.
Same.
I can't go back.
I thought so too, but then I was forced into it.
Oh dear, that's terrifying. That. Anyway, I think the thing for me with this movie is just how creative it feels at every juncture. Like, yeah, the story's not like super deep, but the simple basics of it work really well. It's trying to make you care about this predator and making him care about the others. And the simple lesson that's introduced with this idea of the wolf, where the alpha is not just the one who's the strongest and who can kill the most, it's the one that can protect his group, his clan, his pack. I think that's a really simple idea, which really works for the idea. If you're going to convince a predator to change his mantra, I can see how that would work. I can see how a predator would still see strength in that in some way, as opposed to just be like, oh, now he's a pacifist. No, he's still a predator. Like he still sees the need for violence and all that.
I think I also think that can only work with the predator being the protagonist. Like you couldn't have that be a secondary plot where like, your Arnold stand-in or your Naru stand-in being one that convinces them. Like we need to see it from their perspective, see how the clan dynamic works. And that's the only way that we get to that point here.
Yeah, but also now that we've done it, like, what do you do with like, this Predator interacting with heroes and following movies? Like,
Sure.
now you've introduced it, you can do more with it. You've got the ball rolling now. So there's a lot of potential for what they might do next with this character.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that I still haven't gotten my legs on yet with this franchise is, are we going to narrow it down to a couple of characters that, like, we've got Naru, she can show back up over and over again. Now that we've got Deck here, he's a main primary character. We had those people established in Killer of Killers. The idea that we can stick with them allows for these storylines to play out over longer periods, but theoretically, they're also separated by hundreds, if not thousands of years sometimes. So the question of, are we ever going to see major overlaps between these, or are they all going to stay in their own separate storylines, is something I'm curious to see how that pans out.
Yeah. It kind of just depends on what they've got planned next, and what, are they planning some kind of alien predator thing in the near future? I don't know. But
I mean, you're the one who saw Alien Earth. That's going to be their most recent hints at what they're doing with the Alien franchise.
No, it's separate from the movies. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, when I say it's separate, I'm not saying it's not in continuity, but it's not like all the talks of, like, are they going to do Alien and Predator? Is it going to be Dan Trachtenberg working with Fede Alvarez, who did Romulus? None of it mentions the Alien Earth. None of it mentions Noah Hawley and, like, what they're doing on there. So I don't think Alien Earth has any indication of what they're doing with the movies. It feels very separate in that regard. Yeah. No, I don't know. But I had a good time with this. I think it's a fun movie. It's probably the second best Predator movie, if I'm being honest. Because I think one of the things that I said when Prey came out and it was good was that it's probably objectively a better movie than Predator 2. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is. But I kind of still like Predator 2 more. Like, I love how dumb Predator 2 is. I love the setting of it. Like, it just fills me with joy. I think this one succeeds for me in actually not just being better than Predator 2, but I actually like it a bit more than Predator 2, because it's doing something so different and exciting with the ideas, and it does turn it into a different genre almost, because it's like, now we're doing a space adventure movie with a predator as the main character. We've got a very different tone, but I think that's kind of what makes it work. I think if they, like, still try to make it feel more like a regular Predator movie, but with just a little bit of this stuff in it, it might have felt a bit off. I think to make this work, they had to, like, say, no, we're pivoting hard into a different style of movie. And in the same way that, part of the reason why Aliens is so good next to Alien is because they didn't just do the same thing again. It's like, no, we're going to do something that introduces, like, an entirely different genre into the mix. And I think that's what they've done here.
No, I agree. I agree with everything you're saying there. My rankings between the Predator movies might be a little bit different on that, but the one bit that I think is just a fundamental how I feel about the movie is, I think that I don't enjoy it being this space adventure as much as I would have enjoyed it being more like a standard Predator flair. And maybe that's just, I've been oversaturated with, that kind of space adventure. Like I said, it gave me a little bit of, like, Disney Plus vibes, and I'm just kind of sick at that at this point. So maybe it has something to do with all that. But for me, I'd say that this doesn't quite get up to what I remember Prey being. Now, Prey is, like, last viewing was like a year now at this point, maybe a little bit longer. So I would probably have to go back to get a full reminder of that. But I remember liking Prey just a bit more than I remember walking out of this one and liking this. But it's still fun. That's the main thing. As much as I sound like I'm criticizing, I did have a lot of fun with this movie because it is built to be fun, and it succeeds in every measure there. Yeah,
it's very creative, and it's constantly well directed. It's constantly doing interesting things, and it's visually very stimulating as it's doing them. So I think that's really worth complimenting. And I just want to also say that I hate Disney Plus shows for the most part as well, and I was never feeling that from this. So I just want to, I'm not even correcting. I'm just sort of putting out that I didn't feel that, just for anyone who's worried that that's like what they're going to feel, assuming they've not seen it and they're still listening to all the spoiler stuff for some reason.
What are you doing?
Very strange. So, like, yeah, on the broadest level, I can see the comparison you've been trying to make, but I just I mean, I think one of the things that maybe stopped the Bud stuff from being too much is that after like the initial meeting and campfire stuff, he just disappears until like the third act. Like it's not like he's constantly there and we're constantly doing stuff with that. So yeah. But hey, David, what are you rating Predator Badlands?
I am absolutely determined. When I left the theater, I knew what my score was going to be with a little bit of wiggle room. And unfortunately, talking about it as much as it has widened that wiggle room. So I think when I came out of the theater, I was feeling a 7.5. I think that's, I wouldn't have said that I had called it great, but in talking about it more and going through like, you know, how we felt about things there, I think I do recognize how much fun I did have with it and how my ideas going into it of expecting another Prey or expecting just kind of another hardcore Predator film did kind of leave me with a different taste in my mouth that I was expecting. So it is still fun. I still had a good time with it. It is different than what I was expecting going into it, but that doesn't inherently ruin anything. It just, you know, different expectations. So I think I am going to bump this up to the 8. But I do want to give a little caveat there that until I watch it again and can officially say anything, just in memory's sake, I'm still going to put Prey as above this. I also gave that one an 8, but I think that I like that one just a little bit more than this one.
Yeah, I think I'm also going with an 8, honestly. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a lot of fun. I left feeling very like just energized by it. I left the theater in a good mood because it was a fun ride. It felt like it was being creative the entire time. It was doing something new and interesting with the Predator mythos, which is cool. And I think as far as expectation goes, the one expectation I had going in is that it couldn't be like any of the other Predator films, so I didn't really know exactly what to expect tonally once it actually got going. Because the trailers hinted at some stuff, but it didn't really hint at how it was going to feel to watch this movie. And part of me thought, oh, this might be a dud. Maybe this just won't work at all. So I went in just kind of with very muted expectations and hoping for the best. So I don't know what I was expecting, but I think if it felt like the other Predator movies, I probably would have said it was a failure because it's supposed to be something different. And if it ended up just reverting back to them, it would have been kind of weird. But you've got this kind of adventure sci-fi movie. You've got kind of an interesting borrowing of elements from the Alien franchise in some ways to kind of like shake things up. And it does feel fresh because it's a Predator going against the Power Loader, or it's a Predator talking to Weyland-Yutani since. And there's also a lot of nice parallels to Prey where you've got this character wanting to prove themselves. It's a bit harsher because they're predators and they're harsher than humans are. But you've also got this idea of brother and sister relationships being a big part of it because that was a part of Prey. You've got the Predator and his brother. You've got Thea and her kind of sister as being parts of this movie. There's a lot of parallels throughout in a lot of ways to that film. But yeah, 8 out of 10. Really great. I think I might have even rated Prey a little bit higher at the time because I was just so hyped that we had a good Predator movie. I might drop that to like a 7.5 now if I'm really thinking about it. Like, it's good. It's still a very good movie, but I do think that this is tighter from a pacing perspective, and I think it's a little bit more interesting consistently because it's just doing some cool, interesting stuff. But yeah, apparently it's a little bit divisive online. I don't think this has worked for everyone. So clearly some people, I don't know if they just wanted a regular Predator movie. I don't know if they are like, there's not human beings been ripped apart. I actually think it's kind of interesting there's not a single human being in the whole movie. That's kind of unique. How many movies do you watch with no human beings?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair from that viewpoint for sure. But at the same time, like, the synths are so close. It's kind of a difference without a difference at that point.
But that's not the point, though. The point is that there's no actual human beings. I'm not saying there's no human-looking beings or human-looking characters. I'm saying there's no human beings, and that's kind of a neat little bit of trivia, I guess.
I will point to 95% of Pixar's releases when you want a movie without any human beings in it.
Yeah, but it's just way more common in animated movies for obvious reasons.
It is. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you were saying. I can't remember if it was in the ratings rundown or not, but you were specifically saying of how we've reached this point where CGI allows us to do that. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of these, I feel like, over the next few years.
Depends, yeah. Arguably, even Avatar's kind of dipped out of that territory since most of the characters have become Na'vi. Well, only one became Na'vi, but you know what I mean? Like, most of the characters are aliens, and there's a few humans here or there, but Way of the Water was definitely way, way more shifted towards Na'vi as for the characters. Outside of some villains, obviously. But yeah, that's the Predator Badlands discussion. David does, of course, have a homework movie, which we'll get to in just a second. But of course, I'll tell you that if you want to support the show and help keep it coming, you can do so over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or via YouTube membership. Get access to the bonus ratings rundown segments for each episode, which we also do for Collector's Cut or other movie podcast. Right now, we're doing Cindy LeMay season, and that's been a lot of fun. We did 70s Thrillers before that. We've got a Christmas season coming up for December, so go check out that. But you also get access via Patreon or YouTube membership to Extra Reels, which is our monthly show where we review some of the worst movies of all time. And it just so happens that this month's episode is actually also kind of a sci-fi movie. It is the Amazon Prime rendition of War of the Worlds starring Ice Cube. But we have done many a bad movie on that show now. Something in the mid-30s, give or take. Yeah. So go have a look-see if you're interested in such a thing. But yes...
I'd say it's a pretty even split between, wow, that was awful, and we can laugh about it, and wow, that was awful, I want to die.
So yeah, we'll wrap up with David's homework movie. Every week on the show, David goes back and watches a movie from before he joined the show so he can catch up and be up to date eventually. Yes. And there you go. So David, what was this week's homework movie?
Well, I don't know if you even remember this. I was one Predator movie shy of finishing the franchise.
Is it Requiem?
No, I already did the AVPs for Alien, whatever.
All right, okay,
no, I was a Shane Black movie shy of finishing the franchise.
Oh, you want to talk about disappointments? Jesus, like the hope going into this that Shane Black was doing a Predator movie was so exciting. It was so tantalizing. We're going to get a good Predator movie because Shane Black's doing it, and it's a goddamn mess. It's such a sloppy mess of a movie.
I don't have a lot of exposure to Shane Black movies. I think I was introduced to him with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and I really like that one. That one, it's quick-witted, clever, does a lot of good stuff. Then there was Iron Man 3. I think that was my next exposure. That one wasn't as big on, and even that was before I even got like MCU fatigue. Like I was just like, this one feels a bit weird, and I'm not sure why, but it just wasn't quite working.
It was better than the first two. I'll stand by that, but on you go.
Okay, fair enough. I'd say it's better than the second one for sure. I don't know about the first, but when it got to this one, there may have been other Shane Black in there. I'm not sure, but I watched this one now, The Predator. Dear Lord, I what were we even doing for half that movie? Like I was so uninterested in anything that was happening. And every time that it tried to do like a humorous thing, I just felt like the characters were staring at the camera and going like, get a load of this guy. Like everything was too on the nose and just like, I don't know. None of the humor was working, and that's a problem because I felt like 95% of the movie was just trying to make this humor work.
Which is so weird because Shane Black is usually very good at humor in his movies, and it's maybe just an idea because obviously he's got this association with Predator because he was in the first one, and I think he did some script touch-ups while he was on set. Like that's why they put him in the movies. Like, hey, be on set, and if we need some lines rewritten, you can do a little touch-up here or there. But he didn't like write the original script. He didn't come up with the Predator concept or anything like that. That was the Thomas brothers, and I think that maybe just his style of humor, if he's going to actually do the entire movie, it just doesn't fit what Predator is. And I think that's what that movie kind of get into. And like, it's got that sort of broken clock thing where like, one every 20 jokes might be kind of funny, right? It does happen every so often. Like, there's like a funny bit where like Olivia Munn's waking up, and they all sort of try and stand and act casual, and like, you know, they're just being awkward, and it's kind of funny because it's like, okay, this is actually on its own in a vacuum, a kind of a funny setup and scene. It doesn't really belong in a Predator movie. Anyway, the big thing with that, I mean, there's a lot of big things with that movie, right? Oh, then the autistic kid being the chosen one and all that stuff. Like, that's a whole other thing to get into.
Yeah.
But the thing for me is there's an antagonist in that movie who is eventually killed off. I won't say who, just in case for some reason you don't want spoilers for The Predator.
Right.
But there's an antagonist in that movie who dies in a forest sequence, and it's shot and edited so badly that I, like, even on a second viewing, still barely catch that it happened. And I'm like, I should be aware when a main character has been killed off. It should be very, very memorable and notable.
Well, here's the thing. I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember the sequence where that character died. I remember I was just like, oh, okay, they died. Okay. How did that happen? Because, like, the Predator was not there at that moment.
Oh,
and
I can tell you.
Into it of, like, how it happened, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever read in my life.
Yeah, I can tell you because it's stupid. It's so stupid. Yeah. It's like it's
again, it feels like it feels like it's humor. It feels like it's this thing of like, we're poking fun at these things and we're trying to have fun with this stuff, but it just isn't landing for like most of the movie. And then you briefly touched on it, the idea that this kid has Asperger's, and Olivia Munn makes the point that, like, actually that's the next step in human evolution or whatever. And I'm like, shut up. Like, I get the point you're trying to make here of like inclusivity to some extent, but like, shut up. This is a poor choice top to bottom. And then honestly, the bit that got me the most, I wasn't expecting it to, is that kind of the core concept of this new Predator that's shown up is they're mixing together DNA to make an even better Predator. And all I could think is, I swear to God, we did this in the Alien movies, and we learned it's a bad idea to try to do this.
Yeah, it's funny how, I mean, it doesn't seem like that is remotely canon in like this movie, you know, in Badlands. It doesn't feel like this is something that's going to be brought up again, or like, no, that was like the Predator's not canon. Don't worry about it. Just forget it exists.
I think it's called the Ultra Predator. Like, screw that. Like, no one needs that anymore.
The Uber Predator or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if I've got to give it a number, I'm going to settle on a 3.5. I was just so uninterested. And then I'm not going to spoil what it is, but God damn, it tried to do a thing at the end of the movie to set up something.
Oh yeah, it does.
It's the dumbest thing I've seen in my life.
The sequel bait at the end is, and that's one of the things when we did it on the show, I had forgotten about that last scene because I'd only seen it the once at that point. So when we watched that again for the show, and I got to that sequel tease at the end, I'm like, oh, they thought they might like do a follow-up. No,
I'm fine with them, like the idea that they might do a follow-up, like, so be it. That was just kind of the era. Everyone was setting up sequel stuff, but what they are setting up is not interesting in the smallest. It is the dumbest setup I could imagine outside of, like, I don't know, whatever Sony's doing over in their villain verse. Like, that's the only thing that's worse.
Morbin time.
Yep. So no, don't recommend that one.
No,
just watch Badlands.
No. Yes. The mediocrity of Predators, and then just the absolute disappointing mess that was The Predator, was a dark time in the Predator timeline. Yep. But thankfully, from 2022 onwards, it's been a bit more on the positive side. But yeah, that is the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. That has been our thoughts on Predator Badlands. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that usual stuff helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, computer, add salsa.